Mediation theory is the idea that what we encounter in regards to media such as film, TV series, books, etc. isn't what it realistically actually is, but instead somebody's, either the director's or the playwright's, mediated version of it instead. Anybody can be easily influenced into thinking in whatever way the director chooses, simply by representing characters in a different way. They usually do this by only showing certain scenes between them, or forcing them to appear as a certain way. London is represented very differently in regards to different films. In 101 Dalmatians, it is shown as a very well built and friendly place or environment to live in, whereas Vendetta shows it as a place doomed to rebellion due to the chaos that the government are in. In turn, Children of Men portrays London as a desperate stronghold which denies immigration and is racist towards the people in general. Directors and playwrights often present London differently. They do this by using different types of characters, different versions of the London setting, different lighting, and just different genres in general. If the genre was a comedy, for example, then the audience just wouldn't expect to see it as a war-struck setting, unless they were expecting a thriller or horror aspect to it as well. In 101 Dalmatians, the four main good characters are Anita, Roger, Pongo and Purdy. Whilst Pongo and Purdy are love-struck animals, they are also very down-to-earth characters in this movie, which immediately shows London as the place for opportunities to happen, be it between human or animal, or in the case of this film, both. The bright atmosphere and the bright lighting of a sunny morning in the beginning is a very large contrast to that of the Children of Men, which immediately introduces the idea of a desperate nation by using a news clip. This news clip introduces a problem facing the world as the death of the youngest person, which is said to be just because he wouldn't sign an autograph, which seems absolutely ridiculous in this day and age, but it also tells the audience and forces them to reflect on just how desperate the situation has become with the loss of fertility in the world. The main character, Theo Farron, seems just like an ordinary typical working man due to his just a plain suit, and he's going to buy coffee in the morning, which just seems like an actual thing to do. But because of the addition of the news report in the background, it gives me and the target audience as well the impression that this is just what London has grown used to. Even when a shop explodes, people are shocked and they might scream, but they don't exactly act to the point where it affects them for long. Then there is V for Vendetta, which follows the main character, Evie Hammond, after she is saved from a near rape by V. This scene itself is shown to be very dark to the minimum lighting. It's also a scene where the situation is again introduced, as before, by a news reporter, but this time it's said by the Prime Minister instead of the actual news reporter themselves. And this introduces this version of London as a very pro-capitalist state, which is ruled effectively by him and only him. Within this speech, he mentions homosexuals, immigrants, Muslims and terrorists being disease-ridden degenerates, and how they have to go in order to make this London of this movie and that day and age stronger. This creates a very constricted atmosphere into just how much this London differs from the London of our world, as in the real life London, it is overpopulated with immigrants today who live together comfortably in their multiracial standard, which has become a modern concept that we have just come to accept as normal. But seeing the London shown in V for Vendetta, it shows a very strong contrast due to the person at the top of the leadership hierarchy, the Prime Minister, actually working to extinguish all of these types of people which we have just come to accept today. In 101 Dalmatians especially, the lighting is bright to show a very warm and sunny day, which communicates to the audience how relaxed the atmosphere is. But in V for Vendetta, the lighting is very dark. This is in order to portray a very cold night, which could also go on to communicate, if you look further into it, to the audience that this isn't just the weather, but life in London as it stands. It is a very cold and unhappy place to live, with lots of restrictions and disadvantages to those living there, exactly like the snowy, the frosty conditions on a very cold night. You're restricted as to what you can do, and you have disadvantages of the cold. This is a very similar message to that sent in the low lighting of Children and Men. Here, again, is a cold setting, but although the buildings do look worn and drab, the sky is bright, which may, if we look into it completely, be a very small sign of the hope that people hold for the future, although they are simply being told there is none. The storyline of each of these movies is also a massive indicator as to what impression of London. In 101 Dalmatians, there is Cruella de Vil as the villain, and she is trying to make her dream coat by using the skin of Dalmatians. This in itself shows London as a place where the rich gain from the cruelty of others, which contrasts entirely and completely with the representation of it being warm and a really good place to live. This is proof, I think, as to why many people can see different representation of the same thing, different polysemic signs. And then in V for Vendetta, the main storyline is trying to overthrow the government, which again says about the chaotic government and how hard it is to live there. Whilst in Children and Men, just trying to get an immigrant in order for their hope to live. That is again something which signifies how desperate and how horrible that London is to live in.